Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bachelor Nation News. Fans, the news arrived softly, almost cruelly so, like a whisper that carried more weight than a shout. At dawn, as sunlight barely brushed the edges of the morning sky, fans woke to a message that felt like a final chapter closing too soon. Joan Vassos, the woman who taught millions that love can bloom again at any age, was saying goodbye. And with that farewell came a wave of heartbreak that no one was prepared for. For months, Joan had been a symbol of resilience. Her smile carried warmth, her words carried wisdom, and her journey felt like a promise that hope never expires. Standing beside her through it all was Chock Chapple, whose quiet strength and unwavering devotion became part of the story fans held close to their hearts. Together, they represented something rare and deeply comforting, a love that felt honest, earned, and beautifully human. But life, as Joan herself once said, does not always follow the script we wish it would. The farewell was not loud. There were no dramatic announcements or flashing headlines at first. Instead, it was a simple message, gentle, reflective, and filled with gratitude. Joan spoke of seasons changing, of chapters ending not in anger, but in understanding. Yet beneath the calm words, the sadness was unmistakable. This was not just a goodbye, it was a letting go. Chock's heartbreak was written between the lines. Those who know him best say he struggled to find words. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of everything left unsaid. He didn't speak of loss as bitterness, but as love that had been deeply lived. He spoke of mornings filled with laughter, of long conversations that stretched late into the night, of the comfort of simply being understood. His devastation was not dramatic, it was real, and that made it all the more heartbreaking. Fans felt it instantly. Social media flooded with messages from people who had followed every step of Joan's journey. Many shared how her story had given them courage to open their hearts again. Some admitted they were watching through tears, feeling as though they were losing a friend. "Joan made me believe again," one fan wrote. "This goodbye feels personal." What made this farewell so tragic was not scandal or betrayal, but timing. Love was there, respect was there, care was there, yet sometimes even the strongest connections meet realities they cannot outrun. Joan's decision came from a place of honesty, and Chock's pain came from a place of devotion, two truths colliding. In her farewell message, Joan reflected on growth. She spoke of choosing peace, of honoring what was shared without clinging to what could no longer be. Her words were tender, almost poetic. "Some loves," she wrote, "are meant to change us, not stay forever." It was a line that echoed in the hearts of everyone who read it. Behind the scenes, those close to the couple described quiet moments of grief. No arguments, no bitterness, just the ache of realizing that love alone does not always mean forever. Chock, they say, remained supportive to the end, his heartbreak wrapped in dignity, his pain carried privately. That dignity is what made fans cry the hardest. This was not a tragic farewell because something went wrong. It was tragic because so much went right, and still it ended. Joan and Chock reminded the world that endings do not erase what came before. If anything, they make it more precious. As the days passed, Joan stepped back from the spotlight, choosing reflection over explanation. Chock, too, retreated into quiet, leaning on friends and family as he processed the loss of a future he had imagined so clearly. Their silence spoke volumes. And yet, within the sadness, there was something else: gratitude. Fans began sharing their favorite moments, their favorite smiles, their favorite lines from Joan's journey. Instead of anger, there was appreciation. Instead of blame, there was empathy. It was a reminder that love stories do not have to end happily to matter deeply. Joan Vassos's tragic farewell is not the end of her legacy. If anything, it cements it. She showed the world that vulnerability is strength, that honesty is courage, and that choosing yourself can be the bravest act of all. Chock Chapple's heartbreak, raw and devastating, showed what it means to love fully, even when it hurts. As tears continue to fall from fans around the world, one truth remains unshaken. This story mattered. It mattered because it was real. It mattered because it reflected life as it truly is, beautiful, painful, and unforgettable. And while the farewell is undeniably sad, the love they shared will always linger, like a soft echo, reminding us that even endings can be meaningful.
After the farewell, the sadness did not fade. It lingered in the quiet moments, in empty mornings, in paused memories, in the heavy silence where hope once lived. Joan Vassos's goodbye was not something fans could simply scroll past and forget. It stayed. It settled deep in the heart. For many, Joan was never just a television personality. She felt like a sister, a friend, a reflection of their own second chances. Her journey spoke directly to those who believed love had passed them by, and that is why this farewell feels so devastating. It wasn't just Joan stepping away, it was the shattering of a shared dream. Chock Chapple's pain, though mostly unspoken, became impossible to ignore. Those close to him describe a man moving through his days on instinct alone. The laughter that once came easily now arrives in brief, fragile moments. He listens more than he speaks. When Joan's name comes up, there's a pause, a long one, followed by a gentle nod, as if acknowledging something too sacred to explain. Friends say Chock never questioned Joan's choice. That, perhaps, is the most heartbreaking part of all. He understood her reasons. He respected her truth. But understanding does not erase loss. It only deepens it. In private, Chock reportedly admitted that he had imagined a future filled with ordinary miracles, shared routines, quiet evenings, growing old together without needing to prove anything to anyone. Letting go of that vision felt like mourning a life that almost was. Fans noticed the shift immediately. Old clips resurfaced, Joan smiling warmly, Chock looking at her with unmistakable affection. These moments, once comforting, now felt bittersweet. Comment sections filled with broken heart emojis, prayers, and messages begging the universe for one more chance for them. Some love stories hurt the most because they were pure, one fan wrote. Thousands agreed. Joan, meanwhile, chose grace over noise. In a brief follow-up reflection, she spoke of gratitude and healing. She thanked those who supported her journey, acknowledging the tears without feeding the drama. "I leave with love, not regret," she wrote. Her words carried strength, but also a quiet ache, the kind that only comes from choosing what is right over what is easy. Behind her calm exterior, those close to Joan say the decision weighed heavily. Walking away from a love that still held warmth was not something she took lightly. But Joan has always believed in honesty above illusion. Staying, she felt, would have meant denying a deeper truth she could no longer ignore. That truth changed everything. What followed was a collective grieving, not just for a relationship, but for an idea, the idea that love, once found, would always be enough. Joan and Chock reminded the world that love can be real and still not be forever. And that realization, though painful, resonated deeply with fans who had lived similar stories. The farewell also sparked reflection. People shared their own almost forever loves, the ones that shaped them but did not stay. Joan's story became a mirror, reflecting countless quiet goodbyes that never made headlines. In that way, her farewell became bigger than her alone. It became universal. Chock's heartbreak, still raw, has been met with overwhelming compassion. Messages of support continue to pour in, urging him to take his time, to heal without pressure. Many fans expressed hope, not for reunion, but for peace. They want him to find joy again, in whatever form it comes. And Joan? She is slowly stepping into a new chapter, one marked by introspection and self-respect. Though the spotlight remains just a step away, she chooses distance for now, allowing the wounds to close without public scrutiny. Her legacy remains untouched, her courage undeniable. The tragedy of this farewell lies not in anger or betrayal, but in love's quiet limits. As days turn into weeks, the tears may soften, but the impact will remain. Joan Vassos and Chock Chapple showed the world a love that was tender, mature, and deeply sincere. Even in its ending, it taught something profound, that loving fully is never a mistake, even when the ending hurts. Fans may still cry, hearts may still ache, but within that sorrow lives gratitude. Gratitude for witnessing something real, gratitude for a story that dared to be honest. This farewell is heartbreaking, it is devastating, but it is also meaningful. And that is why it will never be
came
forgotten.
Quietly, but its impact was thunderous. In the early hours of the morning, as the world slowly woke up, a heartbreaking truth began to spread. Joan Vassos was saying goodbye. For fans who had followed her journey with hope in their hearts, the news felt unreal. This was not just another update. This was a tragic farewell that cut deep, leaving shock, sorrow, and tears in its wake. Joan had become more than a familiar face on television. She was a symbol of resilience, of courage after loss, of love rediscovered when many believed it was too late. Her smile carried comfort, her honesty carried strength, and her story felt personal to millions. Standing beside her through it all was Chock Chapple, a man whose steady presence and sincere affection made their bond feel genuine and rare. Together, they represented something beautiful, a second chance at love that felt earned. That is why this farewell hurts so much. According to those close to the situation, the decision did not come suddenly. It arrived after long nights of reflection, quiet conversations, and painful realizations. There was no explosive argument, no betrayal, no dramatic collapse. Instead, there was understanding, and sometimes that is what makes goodbye even more devastating. Joan's farewell message was filled with grace, but the sadness was impossible to miss. She spoke of gratitude, of growth, of chapters that end not because love disappears, but because life changes. Her words were calm, yet they carried the weight of finality. Fans could feel it instantly. This was not a pause, this was the end of something deeply meaningful. For Chock Chapple, the heartbreak was profound. Those who know him describe a man trying to hold himself together while quietly falling apart. He had believed in the future they were building. He had imagined ordinary moments filled with extraordinary meaning, shared mornings, inside jokes, growing older side by side without needing the spotlight. Losing that dream felt like losing a part of himself. Chock's devastation was not loud, it was dignified, and that made it all the more painful to witness. In a brief, emotional moment, he acknowledged the love they shared, calling it real, rare, and unforgettable. He didn't express anger, he didn't place blame. Instead, he expressed respect for Joan's decision, while admitting that letting go was the hardest thing he had ever done. Fans who read his words admitted they broke down in tears. Social media quickly became a space of collective grief. Messages poured in from viewers who felt personally connected to Joan's journey. Many shared how her story inspired them to believe in love again after loss, divorce, or heartbreak. "Watching Joan gave me hope," one fan wrote. "This farewell feels like losing that hope all over again." Thousands echoed the same sentiment. What makes this farewell so tragic is not scandal, but sincerity. Joan and Chock's love was never about drama. It was about companionship, understanding, and emotional safety.
That kind of love doesn't fade easily, and when it ends, it leaves a silence that feels unbearable. Behind the scenes, sources say Joan struggled deeply with the decision. Walking away from a relationship that still held warmth and respect was not easy, but Joan has always believed in honesty, especially with herself. She chose not to continue something if her heart could not fully promise the future it deserved. That choice, though courageous, came at a heavy emotional cost. Fans noticed her absence almost immediately. No new posts, no cheerful updates, just quiet. That silence spoke louder than any headline. It was the silence of healing, of mourning, of closing a chapter that mattered deeply. Chock, too, stepped away from public view, choosing privacy as he navigated the pain of loss. As days passed, old moments resurfaced, smiles, laughter, tender glances. Clips that once brought joy now brought tears. Fans replayed them, wishing things had ended differently, wishing love alone had been enough. But life is rarely that simple. Joan's tragic farewell reminds us of a painful truth. Sometimes even the most genuine love cannot overcome timing, personal growth, or life's unchangeable realities. And that realization has resonated deeply with people who have lived similar stories. Relationships that ended not because they failed, but because they were honest. Still, within the heartbreak there is something powerful. Joan's journey did not end in regret, it ended in truth. Chock's heartbreak did not erase the love they shared, it honored it. And fans, though devastated, have shown overwhelming compassion, sending messages of support rather than judgment. As one fan beautifully wrote, "This story hurts because it was real, and real love always matters." Joan Vassos's farewell is undeniably sad. Chock Chapple's heartbreak is undeniably devastating, and yes, fans are in tears. But this story will be remembered not just for how it ended, but for how deeply it touched so many hearts. Sometimes the most meaningful love stories don't last forever. They last long enough to change us. As the days moved forward, the sadness did not soften, it settled. Joan Vassos's tragic farewell became more than a headline. It became a shared ache, carried quietly by fans who felt as though they had lost something deeply personal. The world kept spinning, but for many, time seemed to pause at the moment she said goodbye. Joan had always spoken about love with honesty. She never promised perfection, only presence. And that is why her farewell felt so devastating. It wasn't the end of a fairy tale, it was the end of something real, something grounded in late-night talks, vulnerable confessions, and the gentle hope that life still had surprises left to give. Chock Chapple felt that loss in every corner of his silence. Those close to him say he has been moving through his days slowly, deliberately, as if afraid that moving too fast might make the goodbye feel permanent. Friends describe him staring out windows longer than usual, holding on to memories that arrive uninvited. Joan's laugh, her thoughtful pauses, the way she listened with her whole heart, these were not things he could simply let go of. What made Chock's heartbreak so painful to witness was its quiet dignity. He never spoke badly of Joan, he never questioned her truth. Instead, he carried his devastation inward, choosing respect over resentment. In a private moment shared with a close friend, he reportedly said, "Loving her was the easy part, letting go is what hurts." Fans felt that sentence like a wound. Across social platforms, people shared stories of their own difficult goodbyes, relationships that ended not because love was gone, but because life demanded something different. Joan and Chock's story opened a floodgate of emotion, reminding many of the loves that shaped them but did not stay. Joan, meanwhile, retreated into reflection. She did not disappear out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Those who know her say she needed space to grieve what she released. Ending a chapter does not mean the heart closes instantly. Joan understood that healing requires silence, patience, and grace. She chose all three. In a brief, deeply moving reflection shared with those closest to her, Joan reportedly said she would always cherish what she and Chock shared. Some love stories, she said, are meant to teach us who we are becoming. That single thought explains everything: her courage, her sadness, her farewell. Fans noticed the strength behind her tears. Rather than anger or drama, Joan's goodbye inspired compassion. Messages poured in thanking her for showing that self-respect and honesty matter at every stage of life. One fan wrote, "You showed us it's okay to choose peace, even when it breaks our hearts." Yet the heartbreak remained. Old memories resurfaced everywhere: photos, interviews, small moments that once symbolized hope. Now they felt like fragile keepsakes. Fans admitted they couldn't watch those clips without crying. What once felt joyful now carried a soft, aching nostalgia. Chock's pain became more visible with time. Though he remained mostly silent, those who saw him said his eyes told the story words could not. He carried love with him like a weight, beautiful but heavy. Still, he refused to let bitterness take root. His respect for Joan never wavered, even as he mourned the future he believed they would share. That respect changed how fans viewed the farewell. Instead of choosing sides, people chose empathy. They understood that sometimes two good hearts can want different things. Sometimes love ends not with betrayal, but with bravery. And sometimes the bravest thing is walking away while love still exists. Joan Vassos's tragic farewell is painful because it reflects real life. There was no villain, no easy explanation, just two people who cared deeply, facing truths they could not ignore. And that honesty, raw and unfiltered, is what made the story resonate so powerfully. As weeks pass, the tears may become quieter, but the impact will last. Joan's legacy remains one of courage and emotional integrity. She reminded the world that love is not proven by how long it lasts, but by how sincerely it is lived. Chock Chapple's heartbreak, tender and devastating, showed the beauty of loving fully even when the ending hurts. Fans continue to hold space for both of them, wishing Joan peace and Chock healing. Many still hope for happiness in whatever form the future allows, even if it looks different than imagined. This farewell is sad, it is heartbreaking, it is devastating, but it is also meaningful, because sometimes the most unforgettable love stories are not the ones that last forever, but the ones that change us forever.